He was betrayed by his own brothers, not by enemies, not by strangers, by the people who shared his blood, who grew up beside him, who knew his name and his laugh and the way he looked at the sky. And yet, what they meant to destroy, Allah used to build something extraordinary. This is the story of Yusuf, and Allah himself called it the best of all stories. In the land of Canaan, there lived a prophet named Yaqub, a man of unshakable faith, deep wisdom, and immense love for his children. He had 12 sons. But among them, Yusuf carried something different, a light, a gentleness, a quality that people felt without being able to name it. And Yaqub, who recognized signs better than most, loved his son with a tenderness that was visible to everyone around him. One morning, Yusuf came to his father breathless. He had seen something in his sleep, something that didn't feel like an ordinary dream. "Father," he said, "I saw 11 stars, and the sun, and the moon. They were all bowing down to me." Yaqub went still. He understood immediately what kind of dream this was. Not a fantasy, not random images in the night. This was a vision, a message from Allah about a destiny that had already been written for his son. But wisdom told him to be careful. "My son," he said quietly, "do not tell your brothers what you saw. I fear they may plot against you. Shaitan is a clear enemy to mankind." He didn't say it to frighten Yusuf. He said it because he knew human nature. He knew what jealousy could do to a heart that wasn't guarded, and he was right to worry. The brothers had noticed for years. Every small gesture of affection their father showed, Yusuf felt like something taken from them. Every moment of preference became a wound they never let heal. "Does our father not love us?" they asked each other. "We are older, we are stronger, we work harder. Yet Yusuf is always the one he favors." Jealousy is like that. It doesn't announce itself loudly at first. It starts as a quiet comparison, a small bitterness, a whisper in the dark. But when it's fed, when it's discussed, validated, and nurtured among people who share the same resentment, it grows into something dangerous. The brothers began to meet in secret. And in those meetings, the conversation slowly shifted from complaint to conspiracy. Some wanted to kill him, others said no. Throw him into a well, let a passing caravan find him, let him be taken far away where he could never return, and their father's heart would finally turn toward them. And so they made a plan. They went to Yaqub with a simple, innocent-sounding request. "Father, send Yusuf with us tomorrow. Let him play and enjoy the open land. We will watch over him and bring him back safely." Yaqub hesitated. Something in his chest felt uneasy. The instinct of a father who senses, without evidence, that something is wrong. "I worry," he said, "that a wolf may take him while you are distracted." "We are many," they replied. "Nothing will happen to him. We are his brothers." And so, against the quiet fear in his heart, Yaqub let his son go. The next morning, Yusuf walked out with his brothers. He trusted them completely. Why wouldn't he? They were his family. But when they reached a remote place, far from any witness, far from any help, they grabbed him. Yusuf called out. He pleaded. He couldn't understand what was happening or why. And his brothers, the people he had grown up beside, stripped him of his shirt and threw him into the darkness of a dry, abandoned well. Then they sat down to eat. Yaqub waited at home as the hours passed. Then evening came. Then night. His sons returned, crying loudly, holding a shirt stained with blood. "Father, we went to race and left Yusuf with our things, and the wolf came. We are so sorry. We know you won't believe us." Yaqub looked at the shirt. He looked at his sons. He looked at the tears that somehow didn't carry the weight of real grief, and in his heart he knew. "No," he said, "your souls have tempted you into something terrible." He didn't collapse into rage. He didn't curse them or demand the truth they wouldn't give. He simply said, "Beautiful patience, and Allah is the one whose help is sought." Then he turned away and wept alone, the grief of a father who had lost his child, sitting beside the faith of a prophet who still trusted his Lord completely. At the bottom of that well, in the cold and the dark, sat a boy who had done nothing wrong. Yusuf didn't know what his brothers had planned for him. He didn't know what would come next. He was alone in a way that most people will never experience. abandoned by the very people who were supposed to protect him. But Allah does not forget His chosen ones, not for a single moment. And in that darkness, a caravan was already moving toward the well. Travelers passing through discovered the well and sent someone down to fetch water. What they pulled up instead was a boy, young, composed despite everything, carrying himself with a dignity that immediately caught their attention. They recognized immediately that they had found something valuable, not in the cruel way his brothers had treated him as disposable, but in the sense that this was clearly no ordinary child. They took him to Egypt and sold him in the marketplace. A nobleman of Egypt, a man of high standing, purchased Yusuf and brought him into his home. And almost immediately, he said to his wife, "Honor his stay among us. Perhaps he will benefit us, or we may adopt him as a son." There was something about Yusuf that inspired trust. He worked with integrity. He carried himself with honesty. And Allah blessed everything he touched. Years passed. Yusuf grew from a boy into a young man of remarkable character, patient, intelligent, faithful, and grounded in a way that came from knowing who he was and who his Lord was. And then came the next test. The wife of the nobleman was drawn to Yusuf. She pursued him. She used her position and her access to pressure him into what was clearly wrong. One day, she locked the doors. Yusuf didn't hesitate. He refused. Not because he didn't feel the pressure of the situation, not because it wasn't difficult, but because he had a clarity of character that wouldn't bend. "I seek refuge in Allah," he said. "My Lord has been good to me. Those who do wrong do not succeed." He ran toward the door. She grabbed at his shirt from behind, tearing it, and at that exact moment, her husband appeared in the doorway. She immediately turned the situation around. "What is the punishment for someone who intended evil toward your wife?" she accused. Yusuf stated simply, "It was she who sought to seduce me." A witness suggested a simple test. If the shirt was torn from the front, she was telling the truth. If it was torn from the back, he was. The shirt was torn from the back. The truth was clear. But truth, in a house of power and pride, doesn't always win immediately. To protect her reputation and silence the gossip spreading through the city, she had Yusuf thrown into prison. He had done nothing wrong. Again. Prison is where most people would break, where bitterness would take root, where faith would be questioned and abandoned. But Yusuf didn't break. He continued to be exactly who he was: present, compassionate, useful. He listened to the people around him. He interpreted their dreams with care and accuracy, always making clear that the gift came from Allah, not from himself. 2 servants of the Pharaoh were imprisoned alongside him. Both had dreams they couldn't understand. Yusuf interpreted them. One would be freed and return to serving the king, the other would be executed. Both came true exactly as he said. He asked the one who would be freed to mention him to the Pharaoh, to say there was a man in prison who had been wrongly placed there. But the servant forgot. And Yusuf remained in prison for several more years. Those years were not wasted. They were preparation. Every day of patience, every morning of faith without visible reward, every moment of continuing to be good when goodness wasn't being recognized. It was all building something in Yusuf that a comfortable life never could have built. Then one night, the Pharaoh had a dream that shook him. He saw 7 fat cows devoured by 7 thin ones. He saw 7 green ears of grain and 7 dry ones. He woke up disturbed and demanded an interpretation from every advisor and scholar in his court. No one could explain it. And then, finally, the servant remembered. "There is a man in prison," he said, "a man who knows how to read dreams." Yusuf was summoned. Standing before the most powerful man in Egypt, having come directly from a prison cell, Yusuf didn't flinch. He listened to the dream and spoke clearly. "You will have 7 years of abundant harvest. Store most of what you grow. After those 7 years, a severe famine will come that will consume everything you stored, except what you set aside carefully. And after that, a year of rain and relief will follow." The Pharaoh was stunned, not just by the interpretation, but by the man delivering it. The clarity, the calm, the precision. "Who is this man?" he asked. He ordered Yusuf released immediately. He wanted to meet him properly, and when he did, When he spoke with Yusuf and saw the depth of his character, he made a decision that no one could have predicted when Yusuf was sitting at the bottom of a well. He appointed Yusuf as the head of Egypt's treasury, second in command over all of Egypt, responsible for the entire nation's food supply. The boy who had been thrown away had just been placed at the center of everything. The years of abundance came exactly as Yusuf had said. He organized the harvest, stored the grain methodically, prepared the country with the discipline and foresight of someone who knew exactly what was coming. Then the famine arrived, and it was devastating. Not just in Egypt, but across the entire region. The land of Canaan, where his father and brothers lived, was hit just as hard. People came from everywhere to buy grain from Egypt, because Egypt, thanks to Yusuf, had enough. And one day, among the people who came desperate and hungry, Yusuf looked up and saw faces he recognized. His brothers. They didn't recognize him. How could they? The last time they saw him, he was a boy being thrown into a well. Now he was the second most powerful man in the most powerful nation in the world, dressed in the authority of his position. But he recognized them immediately. He didn't react with rage. He didn't have them arrested. He didn't use his power to crush them the way they had tried to crush him. He was patient, deliberate. He had something more important in mind than revenge. He gave them their grain, but he told them that next time, they must bring their youngest brother, Binyamin, or they would receive nothing. When they returned home and told Yaqub, he refused at first. He had already lost Yusuf. He wasn't going to send his other beloved son into uncertainty. But the famine didn't relent, and eventually, with the brothers pledging their solemn oath to protect Binyamin, Yaqub let him go. He sent them off with a prayer and a broken heart, asking Allah to be the best of guardians. When they arrived back in Egypt with Binyamin, Yusuf arranged to spend private time with his younger brother. He revealed himself quietly to Binyamin. "I am your brother Yusuf," and asked him to be patient as his plan unfolded. Then, using a careful sequence of events, Yusuf arranged for a royal cup to be found in Binyamin's bag, making it appear he had stolen it. By Egyptian law, that meant Binyamin would have to stay. The brothers were in shock. They had made an oath to their father. They couldn't return without him. One of the brothers, the eldest, refused to leave. He said he would stay in Egypt until his father gave him permission to return, or Allah judged the matter. The others went back to Canaan. When Yaqub heard what had happened, the grief of losing Yusuf, grief he had carried silently for years, came flooding back. He wept until his eyes turned white from sorrow. But even then, even in that moment, he said, "Perhaps Allah will return all of them to me. He is the all-knowing, the all-wise." He sent his sons back to Egypt with a final plea: "Go, search, and do not lose hope in the mercy of Allah. Only those who disbelieve in Allah lose hope in His mercy." When the brothers stood before Yusuf again, the eldest among them spoke with raw honesty. He described their father's grief. He described the suffering of their family. He laid everything bare: the regret, the desperation, the years of carrying what they had done. Something shifted in Yusuf. He looked at the men in front of him. He saw not just the brothers who had betrayed him, but men who had lived with the weight of that betrayal. Men who were broken in their own way, and he made his decision. "Do you know what you did to Yusuf and his brother when you were ignorant?" They froze. They looked at this powerful man, this figure of authority and composure, and something in his face made them say, almost without understanding why, "Are you Yusuf?" "I am Yusuf," he said, "and this is my brother. Allah has been gracious to us. Whoever has taqwa and is patient, Allah does not waste the reward of those who do good." The room went silent. Then came the tears, the shock, the years of guilt breaking open all at once. "By Allah," they said, "Allah has preferred you over us, and we were certainly wrong." And then Yusuf said something that no one in that room could have expected. He said, "There is no blame on you today. Allah will forgive you. He is the most merciful of those who show mercy." No conditions, no demands for acknowledgement of every wrong, no slow withdrawal of forgiveness. Just, "You are forgiven." He gave them his shirt and told them to place it over their father's face. It would restore his sight. and he told them to bring the entire family to Egypt. When the caravan left Egypt and was still far away, Yaqub, sitting in Canaan, lifted his head and said, "I can sense the fragrance of Yusuf. Do not think I am senile." When they placed the shirt over his face, his sight returned. And when the family arrived in Egypt and stood before Yusuf, he embraced his parents and said, "Enter Egypt if Allah wills, in safety." He looked around at his family, reunited, whole, safe, and remembered the dream. 11 stars, a sun and a moon, all bowing. It had come true, every part of it. And he raised his hands and said, "My Lord, you have given me sovereignty and taught me the interpretation of dreams. Creator of the heavens and earth, you are my guardian in this world and the next. Let me die as a Muslim and join me with the righteous." The story of Yusuf is not just about one man. It is about what happens when you refuse to let betrayal define you, when you choose faith over bitterness, when you continue to be good in the dark, with no audience, with no guarantee that anyone is watching or that it will ever matter. It is a reminder that the worst moments of your life are not the end of your story. They are often, in ways you cannot see from inside them, the beginning of something greater than you could have planned for yourself. Yaqub lost his son for years. Yusuf lost his freedom, his family, his home, and yet neither of them lost their trust in Allah. And that trust, patient, unshakable, quiet, was the thread that connected every broken piece of the story until it became whole. Allah does not waste the patience of those who believe, and that is why, of all the stories he could have told us, he called this one the best.